On the morning of October 3, 1955, the sun rose over Apia Harbor in western Samoa, with a clarity that gave no hint of the mystery to follow. The MV Joyita, a vessel built with a history as a luxury yacht and a World War II patrol boat, was preparing for a routine 270-mile journey to the Tokelau Islands. Captain Thomas Dusty Miller, a man whose reputation was as weathered as his ship, stood on the deck overseeing the final loading. The cargo was a snapshot of island life: timber, empty oil drums, and a significant shipment of medical supplies intended to fight a local outbreak. Among the 25 people on board were 16 crew members and 9 passengers, including a local doctor, an influential government official, and a copra buyer. The mood was professional, perhaps even casual. The Joyita was unique. Her hull was lined with solid cork, making her practically unsinkable, a floating life raft. As she slipped past the reef and into the deep blue of the Pacific, witnesses noted nothing unusual. It was the last time any of them would be seen by the civilized world. The Tokelau Islands waited. 2 days passed, then 3. The Joyita was not equipped with a powerful radio, but the lack of communication began to gnaw at the port authorities. By the time a formal search was launched, the vast, unforgiving nature of the Pacific had already begun to settle over the ship's path. Royal New Zealand Air Force planes spent days scouring 100,000 square miles of open water. They found nothing. No debris, no oil, no life rafts. The ocean was a perfect empty slate. It wasn't until November 10th, 38 days after her departure, that the merchant ship Tuvalu spotted a silhouette drifting near the Fiji Islands, nearly 600 miles away from its intended destination. As the Tuvalu approached, the crew realized they were looking at a ghost. The Joyita was listing heavily, her port rail buried in the water, looking like a discarded toy. There was no movement on deck, no smoke from the funnel. The ship was alive in its structure, but dead in its spirit. When the first boarding party stepped onto the tilted, barnacle-encrusted deck, they entered a nightmare of preservation and absence. The interior of the Joyita was a masterclass in the uncanny. The boarding party found that the ship's clocks had stopped at precisely 10:25, but whether that was AM or PM remained a mystery. The radio was tuned to the international distress frequency, yet the master switch was off. In the galley, the preparation for a meal was evident. Pots were on the stove, though the food had long since rotted. But the most chilling discovery was in the small cabin used by the doctor. An open medical bag sat on the floor. It wasn't just open, it was staged. Several scalpels and surgical instruments were missing, and the floor was littered with blood-stained bandages. It suggested a desperate medical emergency, yet there was not a single drop of blood anywhere else on the ship. No signs of a struggle, no bullet holes, no evidence of a storm. The logbook and all navigation instruments were gone, as if the captain had purposefully erased the ship's memory before leaving. But the most haunting fact remained. The Joyita was still floating. Even half submerged, she was a sanctuary. Why would 25 people abandon a ship that refused to sink? The official inquiry in 1956 struggled to find a logical cause. They looked at the engine and found a broken cooling pipe. This minor mechanical failure would have caused the bilges to flood, explaining the list, but not the abandonment. This is where we look deeper. Modern acoustic forensics suggest a terrifying possibility: infrasound. The specific vibration caused by the broken pipe against the ship's wooden hull could have created a resonant frequency of 19 Hz. At this frequency, the human body reacts with visceral terror. It causes the chest to vibrate, the eyes to hallucinate shapes in the periphery, and a psychological state of impending doom. Imagine the passengers in the dark, tilted corridors of the Joyita. Every breath they took was filled with a sound they couldn't hear, but a dread they could feel. They likely began to see things in the shadows of the ship, ghostly figures or perceived threats. To them, the unsinkable ship had become a haunted cage. The ghost frequency didn't sink the Joyita. It drove the people into the sea to escape a horror that didn't exist. The ultimate fate of the 25 remains one of the ocean's most guarded secrets. If they launch the lifeboats, as the missing equipment suggests, they were never found. The currents in that region are treacherous, and the Pacific is home to some of the most aggressive shark populations on Earth. But many find that answer too simple. In the years following the disappearance, rumors persisted of white shadows seen on remote, uninhabited atolls, people who fled into the trees when approached. The MV Joyita was eventually salvaged, but she was a broken vessel. She ran aground multiple times under new owners, as if she were searching for the floor of the ocean she was never meant to reach. She was finally broken up for scrap in the 1960s. Her wood used to build local houses. Some say those houses are still cold, even in the tropical heat. The Joyita teaches us that the ocean is not just a place of water. It is a place of frequencies and echoes. Some things disappear because they were taken, and some things disappear because they simply could no longer bear to stay in this reality. You have been watching Vanish Point. The next time you stand on a shore, remember, the horizon is not an end, it's a curtain, and sometimes the curtain stays closed.